Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video where today we are going to be reviewing the original Sam Raimi Spider-Man in 2002. Um, Currently this movie sits as... What the fuck? Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video where today we are going to be reviewing Spider-Man 2002. So let's get started. Spider-Man 2002 was a very important movie for the comic book movie genre because even though X-Men, the X-Men movie franchise, as well as Blade have already come out, those two movies were hits at the box office, but this movie is considered as like a blockbuster type movie, and it at the time had the biggest opening weekend out of any movie that ever came out. And it still to this day is very well celebrated. For me personally, I have always loved this film. It's one of my favorite Spider-Man films, one of my favorite films of all time, literally. So let's kick this review off with the positives. My first positive with Spider-Man 2002 is Tobey Maguire as Spider-Man. He is my favorite Spider-Man / Peter Parker. His Peter Parker performance of Peter Parker in this film and throughout the entire trilogy is fantastic. I would argue that this is probably his weakest performance as Spider-Man in this first film. It's still incredible, but it's the weakest because I feel like he develops a little bit more in the next two films and in Spider-Man No Way Home. But what they give his character in this film is great. All the action sequences in this film are awesome. The development of the origin story, development of that is great with Uncle Ben's speech, with great power comes great responsibility. And when he fails to live up to that, when he fights the wrestler inside, for money, and he ends up taking the path of revenge, and lets the criminal lets the criminal go because of it, and it ends up that criminal ends up murdering his uncle, and he feels very responsible for that because he had the power, he had the strength, he had the responsibility to stop the criminal, and he decided not to. And this movie does a great job of him fully embracing that, especially once we get to the end of the movie. That is very well paid off at the end of this movie. Like I was saying before, the action in this film is fantastic. Some of the best action in any Spider-Man movie has ever come out. Of course, the sequence in Times Square, even the sequence in the school against Flash Thompson, is one of the most iconic scenes in this movie. The fight in the burning building is great. The final battle is one of the best Spider-Man final battles I've seen. Green Goblin, especially with his return in No Way Home, I think he's one of the best villains in the entire, one of my favorite villains of all time, because he has just as much of an origin story as Peter Parker does in this movie. So you feel that development of him, and his development in Spider-Man No Way Home just builds the arch nemesis side between him and Peter Parker. Even though No Way Home is not quite the Peter Parker that we get, it's not the same Peter Parker, but it elevates this performance of Green Goblin. I like the sort of Norman Bates sort of style to him because he has two different personalities, and one personality which is the evil part, has full control of the human personality. So I like that sort of dynamic that happens in this film. The score to this film is one of the greatest movie scores of all time. It is one of the most heroic, most exciting, and most iconic superhero movie themes of all time. So yeah, just a lot of things that I just love about this movie. There's not that much I could say about it that's wrong with it. A few other great things about it. Harry Osborn, James Franco's performance as Harry Osborn was really good in this film. Even though I think it's the weakest of his performances, I think it's really great in this film, and it kicks off how incredible of a character he'll become in the next two films. But you feel that sort of best friend, always, I'm always there to protect you sort of friend in Harry Osborn, and you sort of feel that development of him feeling jealous of Peter, and you feel the development of him growing some love for his father and then immediately losing him afterward. So you really root for him as a character, and you once we get to the end of the movie, you're excited to see where he is going in the next two movies. Considering that I love these all three of these movies. Mary Jane Watson. I know everybody, especially with No Way Home coming out, just hates on her. I think she's the second best love interest out of all three Spider-Man movies. I think Gwen Stacy in the Amazing Spider-Man series is slightly better, but I think that her character arc and Mary Jane's character arc in this film, in these three films, are great, and her chemistry with Tobey Maguire actually works for me. So they feel like mature, somewhat people, um, and that's something that I prefer instead of like kind of. Even though I prefer the chemistry in the Amazing Spider-Man series, the chemistry between Zendaya and Tom Holland in the MCU feels a little bit immature. So I feel like this this is a more traditional version of um, Peter Parker, and that's one of the best things about this movie is that it's a very traditional film. Instead of going way out there as some other Spider-Man movies do, um, it gives. That's why some other films aren't quite as good as this one, like the Amazing Spider-Man, because this one already perfected a lot of the tropes and a lot of the traditional takes on Spider-Man. So this film kind of perfected what you want from a traditional Spider-Man film. Now for the negatives. Now I only really have one gripe with this film, and it's not really a gripe for me, but I think it's a gripe for everybody else. In that this film, for some parts of this film, has not quite aged too well, but I think a lot of this movie holds up very well, and that doesn't bug me at all because I've always been a big fan of this movie ever since I was 6 years old. This is the first PG-13 movie I ever saw, and I've loved it ever since. It is one of my favorite films of all time. So, as far as an action film, I think it is a 9.5 out of 10. As far as characters, I think it's a 9.75 out of 10. As far as entertainment, I think it is a 9.5 out of 10. And overall, I give it a 10 out of 10. A 5 out of 5, 5 out of 5 stars. And I think it's one of the greatest films of all time. I do recommend that you go check it out. So if you guys enjoyed, please a big fat thumbs up if you have. Sorry guys, my heater's going off. If you guys enjoyed, please subscribe, leave a big fat thumbs up.